bunnies, welcome back to my channel. For Halloween I thought I'd try a new style of video, so I recorded some footage of a spread in my sketchbook and I wanted to add a voiceover to just make it more interesting. I was originally going to tie it into Halloween since I decided to draw my OCs in Halloween costumes, but the topic of the pressures I felt since I turned 18 in August as an artist just came to mind and it seemed more interesting to talk about. I guess the idea of growing up and out of things is kind of fitting for a holiday that's so child-centric, so I kind of guess it works. I hope the audio in this video isn't that bad. I don't usually do voiceovers or anything, but I went to the park to try and find some peace and quiet, but there's definitely a lot of dogs barking and birds chirping. Actually, turning 18 doesn't make me feel really any different personally, but I do feel like on a social or societal level, the way that I view myself is a little bit different. Like, I still feel like a kid, and older people probably still view me as young and call me a kid, but there is definitely a certain distinction between how people will view me now that I'm 18 versus like how they did when I was 16, and I guess how that impacts how I will be treated. I always identified strongly with being a kid, and I pushed against the pressures to grow up too quickly, especially in the ways that like I act and present myself, so it feels sort of like a disconnect with my identity. Since I filmed this sketchbook spread, I ended up thinking probably too much into this change in my identity from child to adult, if you can even really say that, would intersect with my identity as an artist, especially since I've been drawing more seriously or making art a large part of my identity for over 6 years as a child. I don't want this video to perpetuate ageism or creatively eliminating stereotypes, but I think that if you watch the whole video, my stance on whether the pressures of maturing or adultifying your art for others should dictate how you make your art will become very clear. I also hope that this video and the perspectives of other artists help artists of all ages feel less alone. I reached out on Threads and Instagram to hear my community's thoughts on the topic since I couldn't really find anyone talking about it on YouTube. I'll put both of the posts on screen for you to pause and read, as well as discuss and add overlays of some of the responses throughout this video. Reaching out helped me further develop my feelings and hear that other artists feel a pressure to change their art because they are now adults. I also want to highlight varied perspectives, but threads of common points and responses really show how big of an issue this really is. You can check the chapters below if you want to skip certain stuff or skip around them. I was always a creative kid, and while I don't ever think I was the art kid, I was definitely one of the few. I was always full of energy, and making things was my way of kind of letting it out in a way adults didn't consider problematic, but not to sound like I'm putting myself down, I was always the member of the friend group with the least technical skills. I made so many ugly things, but honestly didn't care because it was fun. In elementary school, I'd make little comics and sell them to my peers at recess, write little skits and scripts, short animations using my dad's tablet, or little claymation films, and just so much more. It wasn't until 2019, when I was 12, after all my friends started art Instagram accounts or YouTube channels, and I started watching all the art and animation creators, that I decided to make my own account to share my creations. You can check the link in the description if you really want to see the evolution of my art, but I can include some of them in the video. As you can see, it's all pretty rudimentary and crude, and by this time I had been drawing for years, but art wasn't really about how it looked for me. It was about having fun, exploration, and expression, nothing really more. Those were the days where drawing something never made me cry or hate myself even a little bit. Of course, I wanted to improve, but it was more about being able to better articulate my ideas and stories. There wasn't a pressure externally, so there was no need to be insecure and pressure myself internally. Just enjoy the process and appreciate other people's art. Now that I've set the stage for what art used to be for me, I can finally explain what being an adult artist and the expectations that come with it feel like to me. Just like anything, when you become an adult, there's an expectation to conform to the real world. I'm sure you know what I mean, but it's like when you're expected to either put art on the back burner or make it your full-time career. There's a societal pressure to either grow up and out of it or prove the value of your art by monetizing it, building a brand, conforming to trends or outdated definitions of fine art that adults supposedly should make. On top of that, there are also more specific pressures to make real or adult art by capturing more mature subjects, using historical mediums like oil paint or photography, or pursue careers in graphic design, tattoo work, and more. Balancing all of these expectations isn't realistic and can make what used to be a low-pressure source of joy into an overwhelming nightmare that makes you unhappy with your work. I feel that this pressure comes from an external force, and it's just a matter of individual artists fighting the pressure to internalize it. External pressures can be the expectations from family, society, fans or followers, or the art community to be consistent, profitable, popular, or create art in a way that society otherwise views as respectable. And while internal pressures and personal goals can be healthy and beneficial, when they only exist to appease external forces, it can start as simple desires for technical improvement, but evolve into setting unrealistically high standards, perfectionism, feel of failure, or imposter syndrome, which is fueled even more in the internet age. You can just ignore them, but like other societal standards, they can be embedded so deep and discreetly that it's difficult to really unpack them. Even though many people responded that they felt, while society often places age limits on styles or subjects, children's media created by adults shows that art styles or themes aren't age-specific, and creating something youthful is perfectly valid at any age. I feel like this argument is missing key nuances, though. Adults that create things in these styles are still usually marketing to children, or the art isn't the focus of the product. For example, shows like SpongeBob, despite its bright colors, exaggerated expressions, and humorous tone, appeals to audiences of all ages, yet is still marketed as a children's show. Or Bluey, that uses relatable family dynamics, which is what draws in adult viewers because of its universal themes, not because of its art. And even at that, there are still many adults that shame others for watching it. However, it's undeniably categorized as a show for kids, leading society to perceive these youthful styles as intended for younger demographics. While artists take inspiration from the art of these shows, and some aspects of the art might be appreciated by non-artist viewers, adults likely engaged with these shows in spite of the cartoony styles in most instances, and not because of it. This contrasts with adult-aimed animated shows like Solar Opposites or Has-Been Hotel, which blend childlike art styles with humor, themes, and dialogue meant specifically for adults. These shows illustrate that simplified, childlike visuals can appeal to adults, but in most cases, they only achieve acceptance in adult spaces by embracing mature humor or narratives that clearly distance themselves from children's programming. I feel that this ties into the overarching pressure for adults to act like adults and for artists to make real art to be respected, which hinders individual expression and puts people into unnecessary boxes. While of course there are exceptions, just like there are to all social norms, there are those that are willing to break them, but often it's either marketed towards children and then maybe co-opted by adults. Let's say, for example, like Sanrio, which are characters designed for like preschoolers and children, but adults in all parts of the world have embraced those characters and enjoy them now. Even the little things like famous art galleries and museums, including the Louvre, places with the most respected and admired art in the world, not having any cartoon art gives credit to art that has been historically valued, which perpetuates the invalidation of more stylized modern art styles and mediums. Or the fact that stylized art has to be presented as another product to have any respect. It's never just a finished piece. It has to be a video game, an animated show or movie, a cute product with a character on it, or something else with added substance for the masses to accept it. I feel like the point I was trying to make wasn't very clear, so I decided to come back in and add some more commentary. But what I was just trying to say is that, like, people will go on vacation and go and pursue art, like fine art and paintings, to go just pay to look at them. But you don't really see that with like cartoony and stylized art. Like, you have to be presenting them with a finished product. And like, even though the art in these video games and shows on its own to me is like incredibly impressive, greater society doesn't hold them to the same level. Like, even though, like, watching a Studio Ghibli film, a lot of people are like, oh, the art in this is amazing, and people enjoy the art in video games, there is still more of an emphasis put onto more traditional forms of art and media. And still, like, a lot of older adults do not give the respect that's deserved to these other, like, forms of media. Like, the more, like, anime style of characters in Studio Ghibli films might be shunned compared to more of the painterly backgrounds. So I guess that's what I'm just trying to say. I don't know if I make any sense. Comment below if you have anything else to add. Some of us buy prints of stylized art to display in our homes, but having it as the centerpiece in your living room isn't viewed with the same level of class and legitimacy as a realistic landscape painting or a piece of abstract art. It can be easy to internalize this feeling of your art being lesser than when so many aspects of the media perpetuate that you should feel this way. Since kids are basically second-class citizens, adults must distinguish themselves from anything associated with them, unless the merit is so overwhelming that it's impossible to overlook its value. For those of us that can't just ignore the pressure completely, the pressure to conform can impact our relationships with our own art. I'll include some of my pieces for when I create what I want without the pressure versus when the pressure overcomes me. To me, it's obvious to see the difference, and while both are still in my style because I made them both regardless, you can see that I'm following external pressures instead of doing what I want. While this experimentation likely improved my overall skills and art fundamentals, which I welcome, it's the way that internalized pressures are able to impact my art and rob me from complete agency that I think needs to be highlighted. While I enjoyed adding more gore or using more traditional mediums, doing life studies, planning products, and more, I recognize that despite art being a hobby for me, I've been struggling with the feeling like my art style isn't enough because it isn't more mature or detailed, and that I'm not a real artist, even though I still enjoy making art in more simplified and childish ways. Like, the idea that I had never even drawn a still life outside of school in my life until right around my birthday really, to me, is so telling, because it's just something I wouldn't have ever done before. And especially with watercolor, because I recently got into watercolor, which I feel like is more of like a mature medium, but I still use it in a way that I think fits with my style. To me, it's the fact that I got more compliments when I leaned into what I felt like I was expected to do, and I couldn't just make art based off of what I wanted to. I totally get that people have preferences and that people in my life and online truly just want to be supportive, and seeing me make new types of art will get more of a reaction regardless. I feel like it was contributing to me hating what makes my art unique. It made me feel stuck and uninspired because I was never going to meet the sort of imaginary and vague expectations of what it means to be an adult or real artist, and at the very least, I knew in my heart that it wasn't what I really wanted to make. I feel like my post on Threads really shows my polarized feelings on hating and being proud of my current style. Rationally, I know to just keep doing what I'm doing and make what I want to make, but cycles of self-doubt and imposter syndrome can really make art feel like a waste of time, especially for someone like me who always felt behind my peers in skill. I started going back to making little comics, animations, and interactive elements in my sketchbook, but this time it was to mask the feeling of inadequacy in my art. If my art sucks, I'll animate it or turn it into a little game. Maybe that'll give people a reason to care. It's not what I made that I'm really reflecting on, because I'm still proud of many of them, but it's just the motivation and the corruption of the aspects of art that drew me in to start creating. The pressure really changed my relationship with art as I came of age, which often limited my creativity or made art feel like a chore, when for me it was meant to just be a hobby to release stress and express myself. When asking if other people feel this pressure, I got multiple responses, predominantly from older artists, that highlighted that art maturing over time is normal and healthy as personal changes and techniques change, but you shouldn't change it for external reasons. I got a response on Threads from Lizzie Kit perfectly exemplifying this sentiment, stating, "I also like to ask myself, what is a mature art style? Most non-artists would tell you it's realism or something, but expecting every single artist to just switch to realism at some point is completely ridiculous. Your art style likely has matured. It's just done so alongside you and did it in a way that kept its style. A matured style doesn't always mean a totally new and different one. You're not a realism artist. You draw cartoons. There's nothing wrong with that, and there's no age cap to it. A good practice to pick up is doing redraw often. Take some work from years ago and redraw it in the way that you would do it now. Doing that can help you recognize the smaller ways your art has matured naturally. It can help you shake some of that insecurity off." On the screen, I'll add some examples of some redraws that I did over the past few months of art that I made back when I was like 12. And you can really see that exercise can really put art into perspective, where it's like oftentimes I think it's easier to compare yourself to other people than it is to just sit and compare yourself to who you were before. It can be about balancing artistic freedom and growth. Art naturally matures, aligning with the idea that skill and style evolve with experience, and forcing it can be harmful and unnecessary. Of course, people that do pursue a career in art will have to deal with these pressures in their work, but that's no reason to make their personal work conform. But considering if you're willing to make these sacrifices to make art into your job is an important thing to consider beforehand. Some people also replied arguing about how losing that spark can actually make your art lose what makes it so special, like Link to the Luke saying, "Don't let anyone take away what makes you unique." Or Teely Art, who said we wouldn't have so many amazing shows, movies, or comics if everybody's art had to grow up, so to speak. People were also open about regretting giving into the pressures, like Circus Dog Designs saying, "Please keep having fun with it. I'm literally 27 and I draw silly dog cartoons that are mostly puns." It took me years to start enjoying art again because I fell into a cycle where everything had to be serious and good. I'm only just healing from that mindset now, and I don't want to see anyone else make the mistakes I did 10 years ago. I think the most important step to combating this pressure is to recognize that it exists so you can stop internalizing it and remind yourself in the moment of your goals and motivations, not the goals and motivations other people want you to have. Even when you're aware of the pressure, it can still get the best of you. So here are some of the personal tips or strategies for keeping the joy in art that I have. Keep in mind this is a journey and I will still likely fall to the pressure at some points, but to me a lot of these suggestions are pretty common sense, I would say. First, I would prioritize personal projects. Dedicate a small, regular time slot for personal work, whether it's daily or weekly. Even 10 to 15 minutes a day for purely personal creations can recharge your creative energy and keep you connected to your art. Set boundaries around work. If you're doing art for others or as a part of your job, it's essential to carve out time specifically for your art, without deadlines or expectations. This boundary helps you avoid burnout and keeps the joy alive. Focus on the process, not perfection. Let go of the need for every piece to be finished or perfect. Allow yourself to experiment and explore new styles, techniques, or ideas that you wouldn't typically pursue. This can spark creativity and make art feel like play rather than work. Experiment for the joy of it, not just to conform to what you feel like your art should be. Create a comfortable routine. Setting a ritual around your art time, like using a specific sketchbook, listening to music, or having tea while you work, can turn it into a soothing activity you look forward to. Limit external feedback. While feedback is valuable, constantly seeking it can dilute personal enjoyment of art. Set boundaries around when and where you'll share your work, and prioritize creating for yourself. Since I'm a small artist, I've actually found posting my art to be more beneficial than showing my close friends and family every piece that I make, because I tend to get pretty little feedback, and what I do receive feels less personal and harsh over the internet. Showing fresh art to people I love and respect can be worse for me, since when it's new it feels like an extension of me, flaws and all, so letting it sit and allowing myself to become less emotional about the piece makes it healthier for my relationship with art. This might not be the case for others, but just do what's best for you. Balance challenges with enjoyment. It's easy to get wrapped up in improving and challenging yourself, but too much focus on progress can make art feel like a chore. Be intentional about making time for enjoyable projects, fan art, or subjects that make you happy. Overall, I'd say to encourage exploring self-care, allowing yourself to make art just for yourself, or redefining success to fit your own values. I want to highlight community members who shared how they overcame pressure, and I want to include comments of people who are also struggling to really show how not alone you are. Graveheart Art said, "I'm 31, look at my art style. Your art is fine. People are going to try and trap you into the beige watercolor adult live, laugh, love style very hard as you age. Ignore it and do what makes you happy." Calico Sunrise also added, "I'm 27 and I make stuffed animals. Never feel pressure to grow up. As your skill increases and the style you love, style will never matter and you will always find people who will support you." Atomic Cupcake Designs also added, "Hey, if it makes you feel any better, I'm 35 years old and I drew all of these. I make money with both. I have an online retail business for my kawaii art and a tattoo artist the rest of the time. And I deeply enjoy all of these styles. There is no standard for how your art should look. If your art is authentic and created by you and you enjoyed making it, that's seriously all that matters. Don't box yourself in with expectations and comparisons." Oil by Nicole added, "I'll be 21 in an hour and this is my art." It's pretty adult, and not gonna lie, sometimes I still feel like that even though I've been painting my whole life. And now I'm in uni for art history. Some people are always going to be jerks and treat you like a child for pursuing what you love. Sometimes I feel like once I'm financial, I can make it. Sometimes I feel like once I financially make it, I'll feel like a real person. But you're still a baby. I didn't start crying about getting older until 20, lol. And never change your style for other people. It doesn't work. Purple Ink replied, "I feel you. I sometimes feel like that too, especially because I'm a small artist and I always wonder if people think I'm wasting my time dreaming and drawing useless pretty pictures." Callie Pookie said, "As an adult artist in my mid-20s, wanting to go outside of your comfort zone is valid. However, try to stick with subjects for your art that you're interested in. You deserve to put what is important to you first and foremost. Your perspective and visual mind will not be like everyone, and that is beautiful and okay. Much love to you." Gordas is Dead said, "I feel the same way. I was always super insecure about my work because it felt childlike compared to everyone else's. So I'd quit drawing for weeks on end. It's gotten worse now that I'm 18 and in college and trying to make a name for myself to maybe get some money flowing in from commissions. I see all these conflicting ideas of constantly improve and you don't need to improve and you have to do this or no, that's not how you make money." Mary Bell Gallery replied, "No, just draw whatever makes you happy. It's okay to broaden our drawing style, but never feel forced because it will show. There's no definition of mature art anyways. I'm almost 40, but I still like to draw cutesy things and doodles. I'm maturing by learning more and being curious, but that's all. I still love doodling and cutesy things. No one has to play along with me." Hello Space Art said, "Well, yes, I think we all have a bit of that self-doubt, or a lot of it, but don't do that to yourself. Your art will evolve as you evolve. But I tell ya, I know people in their 40s and 50s who do some really fantastic cute little doodles, and I've never once considered their age as a factor until you raise the question. You're good. Do whatever makes your heart happy." Dangerous Spoon said, "I've been feeling like this lately as well. I'm currently 29, but I still feel like a teen, so I don't know, I guess I draw whatever makes me happy or excited to draw. There are no rules to art. I think you should just do what you like." I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue how to say this username, but I love your art so much. But they replied saying, "I understand your feelings. I'm 19 and definitely get a little insecure when I see younger artists progressing faster than I think I should with my own art. But there is no need to stress it. Your art is a representation of you. If you like to draw cute things or scary things, that's totally fine, regardless of age. I feel stagnant at times in my art because it's not as mature or professional as others, but that's okay. Art is meant to be fun. There's no joy if you can't create what you love." Blue Bunny said, "I feel this so hard, and with art block it feels worse. Just try remembering that everybody's art is unique and an age shouldn't be put on it as long as you put your heart into what you do. CB Canadian Bacon added, I feel you. The older I get, the more I feel like I have to draw more professional and clean when I like drawing chibi cartoonish things, sometimes things more mature too. The last comment that I'll read out is by Owl's Bite Draws, who says, I always feel like this too, and same with just turning 18. But then I always feel like this too, and same with just turning 18. But then I remind myself that my art style is just how I draw. It may not be changing now, or it may not be changing at all, but at the end of the day, it's my own art style, my own thing that nobody has a say in. Your art style is cartoony, and I think that's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for watching the video, and special thanks to all the people that contributed their perspectives. Of course, there were so many replies that I don't think I'll be able to show them all. At the start of working on this video, you can tell that I was feeling kind of down, especially the part in my Threads post where I say, I guess I'm just worried that I'm like a little kid that draws little doodles and everyone around me has to play along and support me, but soon enough people will stop being nice out of courtesy because my art style or subject matter aren't up to standard with adult artists. But it's safe to say that after reading all the replies and working on this script, I'm actually feeling more optimistic and in control. Really analyzing it made me feel like I have more agency and like I have the tools and support of the art community to make art how I want to. While societal standards might be adverse to cartoony or stylized art styles, the art community these days is more open and welcoming to all artists and mediums than they have ever been. The days of anime not being real art and cartoons being for kids is a sentiment that has become much more unpopular among creatives, especially on the internet. Many older artists shared their art, and if someone in their 50s and 60s can overcome the pressure, it almost feels like I can too. For anyone struggling with similar pressures in any aspect of their lives, remember that it's okay to be who you are, whether you make cartoony art, are a photographer, or a fan of childish media. One of the things that helped me fight the urge to grow up too quickly that is pushed by social media is discovering the adult fan base of My Little Pony when I was 8, and the kids at school told me I was too old to be watching the show. If random adults on the internet making art and attending conventions for a show that society feels is only for kids made me feel more affirmed in my interests, it feels like a disservice to abandon who I truly am in order to pursue the vague idea of what it means to be an adult in any sense. It's important to maintain passion and authenticity. I think it's also important to highlight that people of all types of artistic mediums were feeling this pressure, like the idea that people that were painters and photographers and writers were also feeling the same way I was. Made me kind of realize it's just sort of an overarching feeling that all creatives and artists have. They say we're always our biggest critics, but thank you for watching this video. Based on how big the conversation got on Threads, I feel that a lot of people have a lot to say on this topic. And I really haven't seen much about it online, so feel free to comment below to add to the conversation. Thank you to everyone that replied under my posts. I hope this video did the topic justice. Give this video a like if you liked it, because I've never made a video like this, but I'm interested into diving deep into another topic like this in the future. If something sparked my interest, at least. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.